I paid off my mom's $680,000 mortgage. But when I returned to the house I saved, she told me it wasn't mine, and that's when I discovered the secret she'd hidden for 7 years. I hadn't seen my mother in 7 years. 7 long years of silence, of walls built between us that neither of us had the courage to break down. I had left that house the day I realized I could no longer live under the weight of her disappointment and unspoken anger. I had walked out with nothing but a small suitcase, a bruised heart, and the faint hope that one day I would understand her, or maybe she would understand me. Now, I was back. Not because I wanted forgiveness. Not because I craved her love. But because I needed to see the house I had quietly fought to save. The house whose $680,000 mortgage I had paid off over the years without her knowing. Every late night, every missed meal, every small sacrifice had gone into saving her home. I had done it because I still love her, even when she had made it clear she didn't want me there. The driveway was familiar. The gravel crunched under my boots as I walked slowly toward the front gate. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the white walls and the wide front yard. The flowers she always loved were still in bloom, their colors sharp and bright in the evening light. The oak tree by the porch had grown taller, its shadow stretching long across the lawn. Everything looked almost exactly the same as it had when I was a child, yet it felt different. I paused at the gate, taking a deep breath. Memories flooded back. I could almost hear her voice calling me in for dinner, the sound of her laughter echoing through the halls. I could see myself, a boy of 16, running through these same doors, full of dreams, full of hope, believing this house was mine as much as hers. And then, slowly, the memories turned darker. I remembered the tension, the sharp words, the nights I cried silently in my room because her love had always come with conditions I could never meet. The front door creaked open. My mother stepped out, and for a moment, I didn't recognize her. She was older, yes, older than I remembered, with fine lines etched into her face and hair that had turned silver in streaks. But it wasn't just age that made her look different. It was the way she held herself now, the weight in her shoulders, the cautious look in her eyes. She wasn't angry. Not yet. But there was something unreadable in her expression, a mixture of pride and guilt, of relief and fear. Beside her stood a young man, tall and thin, with dark hair that fell just above his eyes. He looked nervous, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, hands buried deep in his pockets. He avoided looking directly at me, though I could feel his eyes flicker toward me when he thought I wasn't watching. I didn't know him. I had never seen him before. Yet, somehow, he felt like he was already part of this house, part of the life I had been kept away from. "We didn't expect you today," my mother said softly. Her voice was steady, but there was a tremor hiding just beneath the surface. I just wanted to see the house again," I replied, my voice quieter than I intended. I could feel the tension rising in my chest, a familiar mix of longing and bitterness. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It was polite, careful, almost rehearsed. I noticed the way her hand rested on the young man's shoulder, a protective, possessive gesture that made something twist in my stomach. The silence stretched between us. I wanted to say something, anything, to bridge the years, to explain why I had left, to justify all the choices I had made. But the words caught in my throat. It had been 7 years, and in that time, I had learned something important. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Sometimes, walking into a house that was once yours, seeing it filled with strangers, is punishment enough. I stepped forward, my boots crunching on the gravel again. The porch beneath my feet felt familiar, the wood warm from the sun. I reached for the door, hesitating as my hand touched the handle. Memories of my childhood, the smells of fresh-baked bread, the sound of my mother humming while cleaning, the warmth of the fire in the living room, all collided with the reality in front of me. This house was no longer mine. Or maybe it never had been. My mother finally spoke again, breaking the quiet. "You've grown," she said, and for a moment, I could see the mother I had longed for. But then, as quickly as it appeared, the softness in her face disappeared, replaced by the careful composure of someone who had learned to guard herself. The young man shifted again, nervously tugging at the hem of his shirt. He looked like he wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. I felt my chest tighten. There was a story here, one I didn't know yet, a story that had been hidden from me all these years. Something about him, about my mother, something that had changed the course of my life while I was gone. I wanted to ask questions, but I didn't. Not yet. I wanted to yell, to demand answers, to pour out the anger I had carried for 7 years. But I knew that whatever was coming, it would come on its own time. And in this quiet evening, with the sun painting the house in gold and shadows stretching across the lawn, I realized something painful. I was no longer the boy who had left. I was different now. Stronger, quieter, and maybe finally ready to see the truth, no matter how cruel it might be. I looked at my mother again. Her face was calm, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. She had something to hide. I could feel it. And beside her, the young man's nervousness told me that whatever it was big. Something that could change everything I thought I knew about my family, about the life I had left behind, and about the house I had paid for with my own sweat and tears. For a long moment, we simply stood there. The wind rustled through the leaves of the oak tree, carrying with it the faint scent of flowers and earth. The world felt suspended, like the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for the first word, the first move. And then my mother stepped aside, gesturing toward the door. "Come in," she said. And in that simple invitation, I felt the weight of the past 7 years pressing down on me. I stepped forward slowly, my heart heavy, my mind racing. I was about to walk into a house that I had saved, a house that was no longer mine in ways I couldn't yet understand. I was about to face my mother, the woman who had shaped my life, abandoned me emotionally, and yet still held a piece of my heart. And as I crossed the threshold, I knew that this visit would change everything. Not just for the house, or for the money, or for the years lost, but for me. For the truth that waited inside, hidden behind polite smiles, nervous glances, and the weight of secrets 7 years in the making. We sat in the living room, the air thick with silence. The familiar scent of aged wood and faint perfume lingered around me. I could almost imagine the echoes of the past, the laughter, the fights, the quiet nights when I had stayed up late, staring at the ceiling, wishing she would just notice me. But now, everything felt different. The room was the same, yet it was no longer mine. The young man, my mother's silent shadow, hovered near the doorway, fidgeting, his gaze avoiding mine. He seemed nervous, unsure where to sit, unsure how to exist in the space I had once claimed as my own. I studied him carefully. There was something familiar in his posture, in the nervous twitch of his hand, though I couldn't place it. Finally, my mother spoke. "I know you paid off the mortgage," she said slowly. "Not a thank you. Not even an acknowledgement of all the nights I had sacrificed sleep, work, and comfort for this house. Just flat, almost clinical." I blinked, trying to process her words. My throat tightened. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because this house, this home, it mattered. It still matters." My voice was quieter than I expected, but the weight behind it was heavier than ever. Her eyes flitted to the young man, and in that quick glance, I noticed a flicker of fear. Then she looked back at me, and her calm mask seemed slightly cracked, as if she had been holding something in for years and now the walls around her were trembling. The young man finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mom, maybe I should tell him." She shook her head quickly. "Not yet. Not here." The tension in the room tightened like a rope around my chest. Something was very wrong. I could feel it in the way she avoided my gaze, in the way the boy's hand shook ever so slightly. 7 years of unanswered questions, of half-truths, and secrets suddenly pressed down on me like a heavy weight. I leaned back in the chair, trying to calm the storm inside me. My mind drifted back to the past, to the time before I left. I remembered how she had always pushed me away emotionally, how she praised others easily but never me, how I had worked double shifts in college, skipping meals, skipping sleep, all to save what she called our home, and yet she still seemed distant, even cold. I had asked her once why she never thanked me, why she always seemed disappointed, and she had simply told me, "You're doing what you should. Don't expect praise for what is necessary." And then, the memory that had haunted me the most, the day I left. The argument we had, sharp words thrown like knives. "You're selfish. You'll never understand what sacrifice really means," she had shouted. I had walked away, suitcase in hand, heartbroken, not knowing that this would be the start of 7 years of silence. I shook my head to dispel the memory and turned back to the present. "Why is he here?" I asked, nodding toward the young man. My mother hesitated, the color draining from her face. He's part of the family now," she said carefully, her words like stepping on thin ice. I frowned, confusion and suspicion gnawing at me. Part of the family. Yes, she said, her voice quieter, almost guilty. He's living here now. Well, you should meet him properly, but, she trailed off, unable or unwilling to finish the thought. The boy looked at me then, his eyes wide, a mix of fear and hesitation. Mom said I should wait, until it's the right time, he said softly. I felt a cold surge in my chest. Something was being hidden from me, something big, something that had shaped the last 7 years of my life. My mother's body language, the boy's nervousness, all of it screamed that there was a truth I wasn't ready for, yet could not ignore. I wanted to explode, to demand the truth. But instead, I let the silence stretch, letting the tension build, letting her realize that I could feel it, that I was paying attention, that I was no longer a child who could be placated with vague explanations. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, I asked, what happened 7 years ago? The year I left. What did I miss? Why did you push me away? She looked down, her hands twisting in her lap. For a long moment, she said nothing. The sunlight through the window flickered across the floor, highlighting the dust particles floating in the air. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock, marking the passing seconds like the heartbeat of some silent tension. I made mistakes, she finally admitted. Her voice was almost a whisper. I thought I was protecting you. I thought I was making the right choices. But I kept secrets. My heart thudded painfully. Secrets. She nodded, finally looking at me. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Things I should have told you, things I thought would hurt you, so I tried to shield you from them. The boy shifted again, stepping closer, though still careful not to interrupt. Mom, maybe now is the time, he said. Her eyes darted to him, then back at me, and I could see the struggle. She wanted to protect me, but she also wanted to keep the truth hidden. And in that moment, the reality hit me. The 7 years of silence, the pain, the anger, the confusion, all of it was tied to something she hadn't told me. Something that had changed the course of my life while I was gone. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Whatever it is, I said slowly, I need to know now. I need to understand. I can take it. Her lips trembled. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I saw the hesitation, the fear, and in that pause, I realized the truth was bigger than I imagined, bigger than I could have prepared for. Flashbacks started to swirl in my mind, the nights I had spent working, sending money to cover the mortgage, believing I was doing the right thing. The days I had cried alone, feeling abandoned, wondering why my mother, the woman I had loved most in the world, had shut me out. And now, sitting across from her, I understood. She had hidden something from me all along. Something that had nothing to do with money, and everything to do with a life I didn't know existed. I glanced at the boy again. His nervousness, his careful movements, the way he looked at my mother with a mix of fear and devotion, it was all too deliberate. There was a connection here, a bond one wasn't part of. And suddenly, a chill ran down my spine. Whatever this secret was, it involved him. I forced myself to remain calm, though my chest felt tight and my stomach knotted. I need the truth, I said again, firmer this time. I need it now. No more hiding. No more silence. I can handle it. Whatever it is. Her hands clenched in her lap. The boy shifted uneasily. And then, for the first time, I saw her break. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her voice. It's not easy, she whispered. But you have the right to know. You've always had the right. I just didn't know how to tell you. I leaned forward slightly, my heart hammering. The room seemed to shrink around us, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating. The sunlight waned, shadows creeping along the walls, as if the house itself was holding its breath. And him? I asked, nodding toward the boy. Why is he here? What does he have to do with all this? My mother took a deep breath, her eyes glistening. She looked at the boy, and then back at me. Because he's part of the reason you were kept away. Her words landed like a blow. My chest tightened, my head spun. I didn't understand yet, but I knew one thing. The truth I had been chasing for 7 years was finally here. And it was going to change everything. The silence returned, heavier than before, filled with anticipation and fear. I could feel the storm about to break. And in that quiet, tense moment, I realized that the emotional journey of the next minutes, the truth, the betrayal, the hidden life, would determine whether I stayed, whether I forgave, or whether I finally left, for good this time. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire, ready to snap. I could feel the air heavy with unspoken truths, and my chest felt like it was being pressed from all sides. My mother's hands trembled slightly in her lap, the young man's eyes darted nervously between us, and the familiar house around us suddenly felt like a stranger's home. I knew, without a doubt, that the moment of revelation had arrived. She looked at me, tears brimming but unshed. "I can't hide it anymore," she whispered. Her voice was fragile, yet there was a weight behind it, the weight of 7 years of secrets. "There's something you need to know, something that happened the year you left." I leaned forward, my heart beat loud in my ears. Every nerve in my body screamed for the truth. "Tell me," I said. My voice was steady, but inside, my emotions were a storm: fear, anger, confusion, and a deep ache I had carried for years. My mother exhaled slowly, like she was releasing a burden she had carried alone for too long. She reached for the young man's hand and squeezed it gently. He's your brother," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I froze. My mind spun, trying to process her words. "Brother." I repeated, the word tasting strange in my mouth. My chest tightened. My vision blurred for a moment as disbelief collided with shock. I don't have a brother." She nodded slowly, eyes full of guilt. "Yes, you do. He was born the year you left, the same year everything fell apart between us. I didn't tell you because I thought it would hurt you. I thought you would never forgive me." I turned my gaze to the young man. He looked so small and fragile suddenly, despite his height and the nervous confidence he had tried to mask. His eyes were wide, filled with fear and uncertainty, and yet there was a spark, a longing for acceptance, a desire to be seen. I didn't know," I said softly, my voice breaking. "All this time, all these years, I didn't know you existed." He swallowed hard. "Mom told me never to tell you. She said you had already done enough, that you wouldn't understand. I didn't want to hurt you, but I wanted you to know me." His voice trembled, revealing the vulnerability he had been hiding. The room felt smaller, suffocating. I sank back into the chair, feeling the weight of years pressing down on me. I thought of all the nights I had spent working, saving every penny to pay off the mortgage, thinking I was helping my mother, thinking I was protecting her. And all the while, she had been hiding an entire life from me. A life I had no part of. The memories of my childhood flooded back, the arguments, the distance, the silent dinners, the cold nights spent alone. And now, they all made a cruel sense. The resentment, the anger, the feeling of being unwanted. It all stemmed from this hidden truth. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice quiet but firm. "Why hide him from me for 7 years?" She looked down, shame coloring her features. "I thought I was protecting you. I thought it would be too much, too painful. I didn't want to burden you when you were struggling. I thought keeping him secret would make things easier. I see now how wrong I was." I shook my head slowly, my emotions a whirlwind. I had dreamed of this moment for years, of confronting her, of understanding why she had shut me out. But the reality was harsher, more painful than I imagined. She hadn't just kept secrets, she had reshaped my entire life without me knowing. I looked at my brother again. "All these years, you lived here? In this house, that I paid for?" I asked, my voice tight with emotion. He nodded slowly. "Yes. I didn't know how to reach you. Mom said, she said it was complicated." I swallowed hard, trying to hold back a flood of emotions. Anger, betrayal, grief, and sorrow all tangled together, threatening to overwhelm me. The house I had saved with my own sweat and tears, the house that had been my childhood and my sacrifice, was now being claimed by someone I had never met. Someone who, through no fault of his own, had been given the place I had always thought was mine. And then, a strange calm washed over me. The anger, the hurt, the betrayal, they were all still there, simmering beneath the surface, but I realized something important. The revenge I had been longing for wasn't about violence or shouting. It was about truth, acknowledgement, and the quiet power of letting her see the impact of her choices. I stood up slowly, my legs heavy, and looked at both of them. You made the right choice, I said softly. My voice was calm, almost eerily so, but every word carried the weight of years of suppressed emotion. I paid for your freedom once, Mom. Now, I'm giving myself mine. My mother's eyes widened in shock. Ah, she started, but I didn't let her finish. I walked to the door, each step deliberate, each breath steady. The wind from the open doorway brushed against my face, carrying the scent of the garden, the flowers, and the fading sunlight. I paused at the threshold, looking back once, my heart heavy but resolute. I won't fight for a place that wasn't meant for me, I said quietly. I won't stay in a house where my sacrifices were hidden behind lies. I'm leaving, and I won't look back. The boy watched me with wide eyes, and I could see the fear and confusion in my mother's face. She wanted to stop me, to call me back, to explain, to plead. But I didn't turn. I didn't speak. I simply walked out, letting the door close softly behind me. The cool evening air hit my face, sharp and cleansing. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years lift slightly from my shoulders. For the first time in 7 years, I felt free, free from the silence, free from the secrets, free from the need for her approval. And in that freedom, I realized the most profound form of revenge. It wasn't shouting, or anger, or even retribution. It was leaving, walking away with calm, quiet dignity, letting her live with the truth she had kept from me, letting her see the strength I had gained while she tried to shield me from the world. The house stood behind me, bathed in the fading golden light. Inside, my mother and my brother remained, staring after me. I could almost feel their regret, their panic, their longing. But it was too late. The years of distance, the secrets, the lies. They had created a wall that even love couldn't rebuild in a single afternoon. As I walked down the driveway, my boots crunching softly on the gravel, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. I had loved her, I had sacrificed, I had fought for a home that I thought was mine. But the ultimate victory wasn't in reclaiming the house. It was in reclaiming myself. And in that moment, the final truth settled in my heart. Sometimes the deepest revenge isn't loud or angry. It's quiet. It's composed. It's leaving them to live with the consequences of their choices while you finally step into your own life. I paused at the edge of the driveway, looking back one last time. The sun had dipped lower, painting the house in shadow. I could see my mother standing in the doorway, her hand resting on my brother's shoulder, her face pale and uncertain. I felt nothing but a steady calm, a sense that I had finally won something far greater than money or property. Final line. Sometimes the deepest revenge is silence, the silence they taught you.